Joining me right now from Hunter Business Law, we have Sheryl Hunter, thus the name Hunter Business Law. I'm thinking, right?
You
That's
are
correct, right?
Yes.
And Ajay Singh, who joins us right now. Not VJ the golfer, but Ajay. Thank you for coming by. We are talking about crowdfunding. First of all, let's define what that is so the rest of what we're talking about makes sense.
Well, crowdfunding is a term that's been around since 2006, but it actually was being done before that. In the late 90s, people who wanted to raise money for indie films for their album to be made started to put information on the internet saying, hey, I need $50,000 to do my film, and other individuals could come in and start putting money in, and then they would get a copy of the film or a copy of the album. So it was bringing the crowds together to fund a project that those individuals believed was a great idea, they wanted to have a reward from it or what have you. Now you've got scientists who are using crowdfunding to raise money to do the kind of research that they want to do and people who care about that research.
But
it's
AJ,
awesome.
AJ, why wasn't it allowed in the past?
Well, essentially, basically raising money, Al, has always been a very traditional field. Since 1933 in the Securities and Exchange Act of 1933, this area hasn't really been looked at or changed in any way. So why was it exactly changed? Who knows, maybe just slow moving in terms of a traditional field, but definitely something that the internet has forced to bring about the change
right,
that
because
we're seeing now.
more people want to be involved, and they may not have the big money that a lot of other people have. So, what is the Jobs Act? Because this all ties in together, and we'll make it make sense. I promise.
The Jobs Act stands for Jumpstart Our Business Startups. So it sounds like jobs, and obviously jobs are going to be made when you jumpstart small businesses, right? The concept behind it is to open up the floodgates and enable small businesses to access capital in a new and different way. So traditionally, if you wanted to access capital to start and run a business, you would maybe get some friends and family money or just bootstrap it with your own money. Then you would maybe go and get a bank loan, which of course getting a bank loan for a small business now is so difficult. And then otherwise you had to be an individual who knew a lot of wealthy people, because you had to know wealthy people and you had to have a pre-existing relationship with those angel investors or with those venture capital firms in order to go and do what's called a private security offering to those individuals. So the Jobs Act basically takes a lot of those restrictions away and offers there's several different titles to the Jobs Act, so we won't go through all of those, but they allow different avenues to raise money going through a crowd-based portal that allows individuals to come in, private investors, to invest in your private business. So if you wanted to invest $2,000 in my startup, I would have an online portal. You could put $2,000, $10,000, $200,000 and invest in my business, and you would actually own a piece of my business.
If you had stock, right, or not?
But your equity crowdfunding,
So
you actually just like when you buy stock in a publicly traded company, right? You can go and you can buy stock in a publicly traded company. This is now allowing people to go and buy stock in a private small business.
Okay, AJ, I can already see that this could be rife for a lot of problems, because what kind of paperwork do the people have to file ahead of time so that somebody just can't roll into a business and say, well, I'm crowdfunding right now, so if you give me $100,000, I'll make you part of my business?
Absolutely. There are definitely some regulations that are in place as related to the type of crowdfunding that you are pursuing. Depending on the level of crowdfunding is going to be driving the amount of regulation and what needs to be submitted. Ultimately, there are disclosures that are going to be submitted, general information disclosures about the business, details who are the owners, who are the officers of the company, and then financial disclosures, such as providing financial statements related to the company, so that it's a scenario where it's not just Joe Blow off the street saying, hey, invest in my company. Now, there's some verification.
This is different than GoFundMe, correct? Are there more stringent rules?
Yeah, there's all different kinds of crowdfunding. We should probably clarify. I mean, there's definitely the one I mentioned where you just have a project like a film or something like that. And then there's GoFundMe, can be donation based. So let's say somebody has cancer, and they're trying to raise money to help that individual. This is very different, it's often referred to as equity crowdfunding, because you are getting equity in exchange for money. And that's much more highly regulated for obvious reasons.
Sure.
That people are being told, hey, put this money into my business, I'll give you a percentage of ownership in my company. And it is a potential for fraud, just like any other offering of, say, hey, give me money, right? So it is regulated.
So part of the problem with traditional IPOs is that you got to have a lot of money to get in, because everybody, I always hear this thing, oh, and there's an IPO, well, I need to get in on it. Well, hello, you can't, because somebody has already scooped it up. particularly the brokers that are probably getting a commission from it. So what's the difference between that and then crowdfunding? And give me a definition between a private investor and an accredited investor.
It's actually, you want to take accredited and non-accredited. I'll let
Sure,
AJ cover
absolutely.
That.
So ultimately, a accredited investor, Al, is somebody who's defined as having over $1 million of net assets or earning $200,000 of net income over the last 2 years. So that's pretty much limited to a wealthy class of individuals. Non-accredited investors is everyone else that's out there. So under equity-based crowdfunding, a company now is able to go out there and get investments not just from the wealthy, but also from non-accredited investors, so those who don't have $1 million in investments.
Is there a greater risk with these crowdfunding kinds of investments versus traditional investments?
Well, you know, under the more traditional, the threshold of you have to know the individuals and they have to be accredited and you have to have some pre-existing relationship or they have to be a sophisticated investor. So yes, when you are making a private security offering to an individual who may be harmed more significantly by that investment in the sense that they don't have as much money to lose. So the impact on those individuals, part of the reason they've been protected, non-accredited investors, and there's a higher threshold and there's still hoops you have to jump through under the Jobs Act before you can just generally offer. But, you know, there is, I guess, the impact on those people. They're also assumed to be less sophisticated investors, less capable of evaluating the risk. I'm not sure that's a fair assumption, but that is the assumption that drove a lot of the basis that you can raise money from an accredited investor more easily than non-accredited.
What is the inherent danger to the private investor with crowdfunding? Is there a danger? Do you have to make sure that if you're going to crowdfund, do you have to file with the SEC? Do you have to put together paperwork that proves you're going to do what you say you're going to do?
There's different requirements under different titles. There's 4 different titles under the Jobs Act. So it depends on how much you're trying to raise, you know, under what time period, whether you've raised this amount of money in the past. So there's some things that have to be evaluated, and that's why we've set up a whole crowdfunding practice in our group.
Okay.
In order for a small business to come in and be able to talk to AJ, talk to myself, talk to another attorney on our team that has a securities master's, and go through the evaluation of what makes the most sense.
Right, yeah, crowdfunding is a great idea for small companies that are trying to get up and running. I sometimes have a little question, is, you know, if it's watched carefully enough so you can't get ripped off. But hey, they say the stock market is watched carefully, and look what happens to the rest of us.
Well, you can go to Vegas, right, and lose your money there, so you might as well support small businesses.
The federal government has absolutely made a concerted effort to place regulations, but not overly burdensome regulations.
Right.
So
Yeah,
there
that's
definitely is protection, Al, for the private investor in terms of there is a vetting process that goes on, and also the marketplace for which a business can basically raise funds through equity crowdfunding is through an entity called a portal, which is also regulated by the SEC. So there's 2 layers of regulation.
So don't think you're going to go out in the street and go, I'm going to start crowdfunding because I want a new car.
Right.
Gotcha, smack. All right. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Good information.
Our pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank
your time.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.